For the first time in over 50 years, NASA is set to return to the moon on the Artemis 2 mission. However, one of the leading companies in this area, SpaceX, seems to have had their name largely omitted from the list of suppliers and engineering partners contributing to the NASA mission. This seems all the more odd considering SpaceX are working on a reusable long-distance rocket, Starship, which is stated to be mission-ready later this year. Moreover, SpaceX are currently the go-to company for satellite launches and ferrying people to the ISS. So why isn't NASA partnering with SpaceX on this mission? SpaceX have received a lot of praise and press coverage over the last decade or so for their advancements primarily in reusable rockets. They pioneered the technology that allows the rocket to slow their own descent and land in specific target locations. Initial tests featured the rockets impressively landing on moving barges in the ocean. They have since upgraded to the chopstick system, where the rig catches a rocket and holds it in position, allowing for a much quicker and easier turnaround time. These advancements would lead most to assume that SpaceX is far ahead of the competition. However, in reality, they only really provide two main benefits: cost cutting and speed. Cheaper costs make this a more viable option for many businesses. Quicker turnaround time means more commercial launches can be done in any given time period. The current SpaceX rockets in active use are the Falcon 9 and Falcon Heavy. These are regularly used for unmanned deliveries of satellites into orbit and to launch the Dragon spacecraft and crew to the ISS or for specific manned missions in space. The Falcon rockets have been used in recent moon missions like launching the intuitive machines Odysseus. However, once the Odysseus spacecraft was in Earth orbit, the SpaceX rocket returned to base. As it stands, SpaceX do not currently have a working spacecraft capable of long-distance space travel. In the case of Artemis, it appears that NASA had simply decided to develop a more traditional, less complex launch package comprised of elements built by multiple long-term trusted partners, providing them more direct control over development in order to hit their target launch window. The Artemis 2, which is set to launch in the coming weeks, will carry a crew of 4 men and women to the moon, where it will orbit before returning to Earth. It will essentially be an initial human-led flight test for future missions, including the Artemis 3 in 2028, which will put humans back on the surface of the moon. The Artemis 2 is made up from two major parts. The first being the SLS or Space Launch System from Aerojet Rocketdyne, a company that have supplied rockets for many NASA missions in the past, such as for the shuttle. The SLS is effectively the rocket system designed to propel the main spacecraft into orbit before detaching and returning to Earth. The other major part, the spacecraft, is the Orion built by Lockheed Martin. This will actually house the astronauts and take them to the moon and back. Various other contractors will contribute to specific elements of the ship, control system and technologies needed for launch. While SpaceX may have missed out on this initial space mission, they are still reported to be part of the Artemis 3 mission. For this, SpaceX is contracted to provide the human moon lander vehicle, the Starship HLS. This mission would bizarrely see the much larger Starship HLS launch unmanned, while the crew launch on Artemis 3 and travel once again to the moon on Orion. The Starship HLS will fuel up multiple times in Earth orbit via the Starship tankers, before journeying on to the moon, where it will rendezvous with the Artemis crew. The Orion will then dock to the Starship HLS before landing on the moon's surface. The Starship will then serve as a base for the time they're on the moon before taking off and returning the crew back to the Orion. While it's hard to argue that SpaceX hasn't made some impressive steps in the last decade or so, it's becoming clear that SpaceX has a very different objective than NASA. For SpaceX, the Starship not only needs to get to places like the moon for research purposes, it needs to be a viable commercial platform for the future. NASA just needs a vehicle that can get the job done as simply and quickly as possible. So, what can Starship offer that Artemis can't? One of the main benefits of Starship is its size. SpaceX claims that it can carry 100 people and cargo with up to 150 metric ton capacity. In essence, it's set up to more efficiently carry the people, equipment and materials needed to build a moon base or begin Mars colonization. The other benefit of Starship is the landing capabilities and reusability, especially for a Mars mission. Having a gravity of roughly 38% of Earth's, this rocket would solve the issue of getting back off the red planet for a return journey. More importantly, SpaceX have claimed that they have found a way to reach Mars within 3 to 6 months, only using traditional propulsion methods. This would make the flight duration quick enough to be safe for humans. However, there are still many problems to overcome to make a Mars mission viable. We need answers to sustaining humans for long periods in space. Muscle and bone loss, radiation exposure, mental health issues, sickness, and inability to store nutrient-rich food for extended periods are just some of the current problems facing long durations in space. For aspects like this, SpaceX will have to rely on NASA and other space agencies to assist with overcoming these issues. SpaceX also has another problem: Elon Musk. While Musk can be credited for pushing his team towards previous engineering successes, it's also becoming clear that Musk has a long and quite substantial problem with overpromising and under-delivering. Recent flight tests have shown that Starship's payload may be limited to as little as 40 to 50 tons, a lot lower than the targeted 150. The 3 to 6 month flight time to Mars also needs to be shown to work in practice. If they can't achieve this, then the platform won't work for human travel. As of now, it seems like NASA are starting to show major concerns for SpaceX and Musk's continuing delays on the project and the complexity of it, with NASA's interim administrator, Sean Duffy, stating, "I'm in the process of opening that contract up. I think we'll see companies like Blue get involved and maybe others." Duffy also refers here to Jeff Bezos' Blue Origin lander likely being the replacement. The lander, known as Blue Moon, is already attached to future Artemis missions. Possibly in response to this, Elon Musk has had a sudden change of heart, stating on X that SpaceX are now shifting focus from Mars to building a city on the moon, which he believes can be done in less than 10 years. In a recent XAI conference, he also stated that SpaceX intend to build data centers in space, leveraging more direct and consistent solar power. He also stated plans to build a mass driver electromagnetic catapult to launch satellites from the moon. SpaceX's first Mars mission, set to launch later this year, has now been cancelled. However, Musk still states that colonization of Mars may begin within the next 5 to 7 years. While we may very well see something like the Optimus robots taking their first steps on the surface of Mars within that time period, paths to colonization, or even humans stepping foot on Mars, may still be decades away, depending on how quickly some of the remaining problems can be solved. In fact, the logistical and technical hurdles to building true city infrastructure on the moon is no small task either, let alone a giant satellite shooting catapult. For now at least, simpler tried and tested solutions have won the day for the Artemis missions, but the commercial space race is ramping up, and we may very well be seeing more exciting achievements in the not too distant future.